This day in sports history. Welcome back to today's edition of This Day in Sports History. This is Steve White, your humble host, and I'd just like to say thanks. Whether this is your first visit here or you've been here for a while, I appreciate you stopping in and giving this episode a listen. It's October 31st, and on this day there was a monster trade in the NFL. LSU's Billy Cannon ran like he was being chased by a headless horseman, and Greg Norman melted under the pressure like a shrunken wax head at a museum fire. That, plus a few more fun-size stories, and if you've ever wondered why we call it a jack-o'-lantern, then stick around to the end for today's non-sports fun fact. But let's start with what happened on this day in 1987, when the NFL's best running back got traded. Eric Dickerson was dressed up in Native American garb, ready to go out to a Halloween party somewhere in Los Angeles, when he got a phone call. The LA Ram, who led the league in rushing 3 of his first 4 years, had eclipsed the rushing record held by O.J. Simpson in his second year in the league, and he was the best running back in the NFL, had just been traded to the Indianapolis Colts. Dickerson had been unhappy with the Rams for a couple of years, believing, and rightly so, really, that he was severely underpaid. He wanted quarterback money. A year earlier, he had a conversation with the then de facto president of the Rams, John Shaw, about renegotiating his contract.
The players, I'm like, John, I said, I'm not paid right. So this is the proposal I made to him. I said, John, I tell you what. I said, Elway and Marino, they're making like $1.5 million. I said, I want to make at least $1 million, something like that. Give me a contract like that. I said, if I don't rush for 1,500 yards or more, then you still go back to my old contract. I said, I bet on myself. He said, no, I'm not going to do that.
This had also been the year when the Seattle Seahawks had drafted and signed Brian Bosworth to a 10-year, $11 million deal. By contrast, the Rams were paying Dickerson $682,000 that season. They'd offered him a deal worth $975,000, but as the best RB1 in the league, he felt he was worth way more than that. And he was. Jim Irsay, the then 28-year-old GM of the Colts, owned by his dad Robert, was the deal-maker working behind the scenes. He wanted Dickerson. Indy needed Dickerson. The Colts had not had a winning season since 1977, 6 years before they moved out of Baltimore. Since the move to Indianapolis, the Colts had not won more than 5 games in a season. Add to that, the Colts had had trouble signing their first-round draft pick, Cornelius Bennett. Sitting at 3-3 on the year, the Colts pulled the trigger on a 3-team, 10-player deal that got them the player they wanted. Indy sent running back Owen Gill the rights to Bennett and 3 future draft picks to Buffalo. The Bills sent Gill, running back Greg Bell, the 3 picks they'd gotten from the Colts and 3 of their own, to L.A. And the Colts got Dickerson. Only 4 trades in the NFL have been larger in terms of players involved. And the trade worked out pretty well for all 3 teams. Bennett ended up playing 14 seasons in Buffalo and was a 5-time Pro Bowler. After signing a 4-year deal for $5.6 million, Dickerson rushed for more than 1,000 yards in the final 9 games of the season. The Colts finished with their first winning record in Indy at 9-6, and the franchise's first playoff appearance since 1977. It would be the only playoff appearance for the Colts with Dickerson in the stable. He led the league in rushing in 88 and had more than 1,300 yards on the ground in 89. After the Colts finished 1-15 in 1991, though, his relationship with Indy and the Irsays soured and he moved on. His relationship remained rocky with the franchise until 2013 when he was inducted into the Colts Ring of Honor. But as for the state of Indiana, Dickerson is not a big fan, and with good reason. And if you want to hear why, you should check out his interview on the Byron Scott podcast. On this day in 1959, a cannonball run sent tremors through the Deep South. This was an SEC battle of undefeated teams, top-ranked and defending national champion LSU and the number 3 Ole Miss Rebels. 67,327 people piled into Tiger Stadium in Baton Rouge for this one, but many more got left out in the cold. Tickets were at such a premium that one guy offered up his Cadillac for a set of 4 tickets. Another offered his wife for just a pair. No word on whether either one of those gentlemen made it to the game or how much longer they were married after that. But it does give an idea about how big this game was. Both teams had stingy defenses. Ole Miss had allowed only 1 touchdown on the season. LSU was even stingier, allowing only a pair of field goals in their first 6 games. The Rebels kicked a field goal in the first quarter to make it a 3-0 game, and it stayed that way into the fourth quarter. Halloween night in Baton Rouge on this night was rainy, and it made field conditions difficult. Because of that, Ole Miss decided to play a field position game and punted on first down several times in this one. In the fourth, Ole Miss punted again. Back deep for the Tigers was number 20, Billy Cannon.
Ole Miss, he stands on his own 28. He gets a pass from center, he boots it and gets another nice kick away going way downfield. Billy Cannon watches it bounce. He takes it on his own 11. He comes back upfield to the 15, stumbles momentarily. He's at the 20, running hard at the 25, gets away from 1 man to 30. Still runs to 25, at the 35 to 25. He's down to 50, he's in the 45. He scores! Billy Cannon raced some 89 yards for a touchdown. Listen to the cheer for Billy Cannon as he comes off the field. Great All-American.
Cannon's 89-yard punt return for a touchdown, and the PAT made it 7-3. But there was still 10 minutes on the clock. Ole Miss responded with a long, methodical drive down to the LSU 2. Facing a 4th and goal with 18 seconds left, Rebel quarterback Doug Elmore kept the football and tried to make it around the left end. But Billy Cannon made the initial hit, and Elmore was stacked up by a host of Tigers to preserve the 7-3 win. The punt return helped secure the Heisman Trophy for Cannon. The run is a huge part of LSU Tiger football lore, and it is still shown on the Jumbotron prior to every home game. It was the 17th consecutive win for LSU. That streak was broken the following week with a loss at Tennessee. LSU and Ole Miss would actually meet later in the season at the Sugar Bowl in New Orleans. That game was a completely different story, with Ole Miss winning 21-0. On this day in 1950, 3 years after Major League Baseball had done it, the NBA color barrier was broken. Earl Big Cat Lloyd had been a 9th-round selection out of West Virginia State in the most recent NBA draft. Lloyd was not the first black player to be drafted or signed to a contract. That distinction belongs to Chuck Cooper, who was a 2nd-round pick by the Boston Celtics, and he'd signed a contract to play in Boston ahead of Lloyd. But on this night, Lloyd's Washington Capitals tipped off their season against the Rochester Royals, a day ahead of the Celtics. The 6'6", 220-pound Lloyd was known more for his defense, but he did manage to score 6 points in his pro debut to go along with 10 rebounds and 5 assists. Outside of this game and earning the distinction of being the first black player to play in the NBA, his season was not very memorable. He only played in 7 games, averaging just 6 points and 7 rebounds. The Capitals folded midway through the season. Lloyd spent the next year serving in the military before coming back to play in the league. He spent 6 years with the Syracuse Nationals and played his final 2 seasons with the Detroit Pistons. Looking for that perfect gift for the basketball fan in your life? Basketball Now is it. Newly updated for 2025, it spotlights 50 of the NBA's top stars. Think fast breaks, clutch threes, and buzzer beaters, captured in stunning photography with sharp, readable analysis. From rising stars to veteran icons, this book is a courtside pass to the game right now. Wrap up a slam dunk this holiday season. Pick up your copy of Basketball Now today at your favorite bookseller. Hey, real quick, you've heard me talk a lot about the Sterling Soap Company over the past few months, and if you haven't tried out their soaps, I get it. It's not easy changing up your routine. But let me just say, if you give them a try, I'm nearly 100% certain you will have zero regrets. They carry not only bar soap, but shave soap, liquid body soap, body lotions, beard balm, lip balm, and a lot more. Plus, there are myriad scents to choose from. Their products are made with natural ingredients and scented oils, and they are committed to being environmentally conscious. And I always get a handwritten note on my packing slip, so I know it's been checked before shipping, and it's a nice little human touch in a world that seems to be going away from that. Give Sterling Soap a try today at sterlingsoap.com. When you think of Greg Norman, what comes to mind? Is it his 2 major championship wins? The hat? His blonde hair? Okay, let's be honest. When you and I think of Greg Norman, it's his epic collapses. Well, on this day in 1993, it was another Norman collapse on the final day of a golf tournament, though a bit out of the bright spotlight of a major tournament. This was the PGA Tour Championship, played at Olympic Club in San Francisco. It was also the final day of the PGA Tour season. Norman had had a pretty decent year, winning his second and final major of his career at the British Open Championship at Royal St. George's, and finishing second to Paul Azinger at the PGA and third place on the money list. But if he'd played the back nine on the final day like he'd played that year, he would have enjoyed it just a little bit more. Instead, Norman melted down as only the Shark seemed to be able to do. After an opening round 63, Norman faltered down the stretch on Sunday, bogeying 4 of his last 7 holes to allow Jim Gallagher to back his way into his 3rd tournament win of the season and the biggest of the 5 that he would win in his career. Interestingly, with this being Halloween, Norman putted out on the 18th wearing a Halloween mask, despite the chance that he had to still tie and force a playoff. It was just a brief preview of the horror show he'd endured 3 years later at the Masters. On this day in 1994, Venus Williams made her professional tennis debut, and unlike Serena's pro debut I talked about earlier this week, Venus's start was a bit more memorable. Venus was 14 years old when she played her first professional match in Oakland. Her appearance was highly anticipated. It had been 3.5 years since she'd played in her last official junior tournament. Venus had requested a wildcard entry for the Oakland Bank of the West Classic. It was a calculated maneuver to beat the implementation of the age eligibility rule, or what became known as the Capriati rule. It was put in place in '95 as a means to restrict players under the age of 16 from playing too many tournaments and burning out. Venus's wildcard entry was accepted, and she was matched against the number 59 player in the world, Sean Stafford. The Oakland tournament was a prestigious indoor event. The previous 4 editions had been won by Martina Navratilova and Monica Seles. Now, while Venus had not played any tournaments in nearly 4 years, she had been working with well-known coach Rick Macci. Macci was a little hesitant to let her play, but in the lead-up to her debut, he saw a lioness in a cage just waiting to be let out. But practice is not competition, so while much was anticipated, a result was not expected. But Venus came out firing 115-mile-per-hour serves on the indoor carpeted surface. She was so raw, she didn't know that she could sit down courtside during changeovers. She had never been allowed to sit during practice. She admitted years later that she went into the match with zero strategy or any plan on how to win the match. But she not only won, she won impressively in straight sets, beating Stafford 6-3, 6-1. The win floored Macci and a lot of other people. He said everybody was in shock that this girl could walk off the street after not playing a competitive tournament, junior, college, no matter nothing, right into the pros and beat the number 59 player in the world. It had never been done. It will never be done again. That sent her into round 2 and a meeting with top seed and world number 2, Arantxa Sanchez Vicario. Sanchez Vicario had won the French and the U.S. Open and finished second at the Australian in '94. In that match, Venus was up a set and 3-1 in the second, but lost 11 straight games to lose the match. The media that had gathered to cover this young phenom asked her after the match how the loss to Sanchez Vicario compared to her other losses. Venus couldn't answer, not because she was emotional, but because, as she said after a few moments, she'd never lost before. And time now for today's That's Got Nothing to Do with Sports fun fact. Sticking a candle inside a carved pumpkin stems from an Irish legend about a fellow known as Stingy Jack. It seems that Jack was doomed to walk the earth for all eternity. No heavenly oasis awaited for him. The devil gave him a glowing ember that Jack placed inside a carved turnip to light his journey. When Irish folks immigrated to the U.S., pumpkins were a whole lot easier to find and cheaper than turnips, and so they started using pumpkins while passing along the legend of Jack and his lantern. That's all I've got for you today. I'll have more tomorrow on This Day in Sports History. This has been an original Thrive Suite production.